Welcome to the Greg and Lisa Show. Our topic again is part two of all cards on the table. And if you're wondering what he's looking at, it's the crystal ball.
Yeah, I'm
And
not finding much in there, though.
No, it's probably not working.
Nope, not this week anyway.
No.
What if it does Greg. One week?
I don't think that crystal ball's ever going to
No, probably not that one.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
What does one ocean say to the other ocean?
I don't know.
It doesn't. It just waves.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was thinking about what an ocean would actually say, not waves. I wasn't thinking that the oceans wouldn't actually speak.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Do you know why Peter Pan's always flying?
No.
Because he never lands. Get it? He's from Neverland.
Neverland. That's very punny. That's good.
Yeah. Just full of a lot of them. You know what?
Yeah.
A dentist calls their x-rays? A toothpick.
That's good. That's good. You know what? Like, I've got some of these too. There's actually a world championship for puns.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. This is a real thing.
Yeah.
Oh, Henry sponsors it. They're still around.
Yeah.
And they're sponsoring it. Austin, Texas, every year.
Every year. Well, and we always go, laughter is the best medicine. Mm-hmm. So, again, our topic is all cards on the table, part two. Yes, and you may not want your kids to hear all these questions, but they're not graphic or by any means. But this is serious information that you really should be talking about before you make a committed relationship or before you say, I do, or make that commitment.
Absolutely.
You ready to start?
Let's do it. I'll do this one. Okay, one of the... That's how it is. Okay. How do you apologize and make up? What pleases your partner? Well, that's a loaded...
What's an apology? Yeah. When's the last time you apologized? You know, when you think about it.
I make a habit of it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times I don't need to. But, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, to say I'm sorry or I apologize, and especially if you have kids, because I think they need to see that we are not perfect.
Yeah. It is easy to get this idea that you have to, appear as this, infallible, unshaken individual, and that's just not the case.
Right. So, keep going.
Oh, I'll keep going with my stack. Okay. Oh boy, sexual intimacy in marriage. Who takes the lead? Likes and dislikes, and what are the boundaries? Is it love or sex? What's the difference?
And that's a big question.
Yeah, that's huge.
It is a huge question. Mm-hmm. And, you need to iron stuff like that out. I mean, not before you're married, as far as, premarital sex. We as Christ followers do not believe in that, and the Bible's not designed for that, but it's after marriage. And, you need to have some serious discussions over it, because that's something that God has blessed for the marriage.
Yeah. Yep. So. And if you start to think sex is love, I won't deep dive on the answers to that question, but I can tell you it's not.
It is not.
So if you start treating it like it is,
yeah, that's true.
Run into some issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Quote unquote fun entertainment. What do you like to do? Interests. Do you like to travel? Where? Weekend getaways? Hobbies? Amusement parks? And you wouldn't think that's that important, but if you've never taken a group of kids to an amusement park, if you've ever done that, you'll realize how important of a question that can be.
That's true. And if you don't discuss things like that after you get married or in that committed relationship, you don't want to find yourself going separate ways to enjoy separate things.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you're all entitled to have some, private time or some self-time, but it's important that you have that time together.
Absolutely. All right. Relaxation. How do you unwind? What is relaxing to you aside from this show? That's not on the question. I just said it. Yeah. And when do you rest? Yeah, because some people are night owls. Some people aren't. I mean, there's some things that are relaxing to one person are not to another.
Right. And sometimes rest is different.
Yeah.
It's kind of like sleeping habits. Some people, I like to sleep with the TV on, set the sleep timer, because I need the noise to go to sleep. Because if it's too quiet, I can't sleep. My mind just goes crazy. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's lots of things that you have to look at and adjust.
Yes, absolutely. Likes and dislikes. Likes flowers, what kind? Or, not red, or maybe you really like red. Back rubs, foot massage, candy, etc. sports, NASCAR, wrestling. Well, most people like wrestling, probably. I would have to think that that's a pretty universal.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. But that's important. That's important stuff because
Yeah.
when you are sitting down to have those relaxing moments, whatever you
Yeah.
put on the TV, what movie you choose to go to, that it all goes to that and
Right.
can kind of make or break the time you're having.
Yeah. And you have to look at it too because it's like on the flowers. You know, I don't like red roses. I never have liked red roses. But at one time, one of my others sent me a dozen dead roses
Well, that's no good.
to
Yeah.
work, you know?
At least, well, I mean, it's probably more on the florist, honestly, than the.
No.
No? Okay.
No, it was intentional.
Oh. Oh, I didn't. Okay. I thought this was some kind of mistake. Or
no, it was no mistake. It was intentional.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because if it was a mistake, like that's on the florist. Like, how does any self-respecting florist go to their thing and pick out?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's another episode, I think.
Probably.
I'm gonna be thinking that's gonna be. I'm gonna have to turn the TV on tonight because that one's gonna be keeping me up.
Yep.
Bucket list. So that's our next topic here. Bucket list. Do you have one? What is it, and what does it mean to you? What's on your list?
Yeah. Do you have a bucket list?
Yeah, I do, but you know, if I don't, that's one checklist I don't mind. Like,
yeah,
I got bigger, issues than that right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, that's why you should discuss that kind of stuff because maybe to one partner it's really important, maybe to one it's not.
Yeah. It is, and I think there's things that you want to do, and especially after your kids are grown, you'll think about things and stuff. But like one of the items on my bucket list has always been going to the Macy's Day Parade, and just watching the floats and watching it all in person.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it. I was in it.
Yeah,
I was in it, freshman of high school.
Yeah,
yeah. People were booing us, actually.
Oh, yeah?
They were booing us because we were not playing in the no play zone.
Oh.
and it's a zone right before Herald Square where all the big performances happen. So I don't want all that noise for the TV. And we would have interrupted Christina Aguilera if we had been playing. I can't do that. All right. Owning your own business. We've talked about this on the show. Do you have a desire to do this? Are you self-employed, and how has that been working for you? Or how has that been working for you? Yep.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons? And we've talked about that. That's a huge topic. Takes a lot of time,
It is, and it has a big financial impact on the relationship if you're in your own business and if it's seasonal and how are you going to budget and how is it going to work? Because a lot of times people think being in your own business is great, but it's not always because you never get away from it. Absolutely. Or you have to keep pounding the pavement to keep the money coming in.
Yep. So. What's important to you? Morals, integrity, values, trust, respect, etc., faith, honesty. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the person who doesn't mind lying and what that must be like. But
I think it's probably a liar.
Well, yeah. I just... On to the next card. Pet peeves. What bothers you? Spots on the mirror? Toilet seat up? Channel surfing? Is there a compromise? Channel surfing doesn't bother me, but I like even numbers generally in most aspects of life, but that volume on that TV has to be like 5 or 0, right? So 10, 15, 20. Nothing else exists in my world.
Well, I think we all have pet peeves that bother us or things that,
that one's not that bad.
Yeah. But it's important to discuss them because you don't want to find out later that
there could be some big ones.
Yeah, a significant other could be full of that pet peeve and you didn't know it.
And even something that's small, if it's something that happens every single day, it's going to seem big.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times it's like anything else. You don't know somebody until you live with them. But that's not a reason to live with them before you're married.
Correct.
But it's about communication and being honest and spending time with the people or that person to get to know.
Mm-hmm. All right. Friends. Are they single, married, both? Do you go out with couples only? How do you feel about boys' night out or girls' night out? Boys' night out gets a bad rap. Everybody always thinks men are out there doing whatnot, and some of them are. But a lot of us are just watching Star Wars.
Yeah.
And eating food.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But you always have to remember, too, that if you are, have friends,
Mhm.
Do you hang around single ones all the time? Because a lot of times your single ones do different things than the married ones
Oh
do.
yeah, yeah.
And
That can
so
get you into some hairy
yeah,
situations
it
there.
certainly can. And you have to be okay with it. And
Mhm.
are your friends of all the same gender? Because if I always had a lot of guy friends only because I was in guy work fields,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
so, you have to look at that.
yeah.
Are your friends female or are they male?
Mhm.
And, how does that affect you and what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no topic heading here. What are your annoying habits? Well, we know you don't have any, so.
Oh, yeah. I'm always told about mine. My grandkids fill me in.
Oh, do they?
Yes, they do.
All right. Are your strengths? Are you are you strong in verbal or written communications? Are your strengths in verbal or written communications? I guess I'm not good at verbal right now, but generally I'm pretty good at that. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is. What is your strength? What are you good
Mm-hmm.
at? Because what you are good at is how you're going to communicate.
Yep.
It's easier to put things in writing versus, talking, or you quick on your
Yeah.
feet.
And if you're somebody, if one person communicates really well in writing
Mm,
and another person doesn't, and they're getting, a text message or whatever form of written communication, you have to learn to
right.
try not to read too much tone into that stuff, and
Right.
because that's something you miss,
That's right.
when
That's
it's
right.
not verbal.
Yeah.
What are your weaknesses? Well, you don't have any of those. So.
What are your weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean that's an important one. Starting off, I've gotten better at it, but I wasn't, very handy to start, and I've
Yeah.
installed, lights and things, and I've done more,
Hmm.
figured it out along the way. But that's,
Yeah.
there's other weaknesses to be
Yeah.
discussed.
Yeah. We all have weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses. So.
What is your favorite dessert? That's huge because some people don't like ice cream.
Yeah, I'm not a big ice
You
cream
know,
fan.
and when you're going to go out, having that special treat, or you're sitting down at the restaurant to do it, you stay right there. A lot of these restaurants have really good desserts,
The
and
pictures always look so good.
pictures look good.
Yeah.
But the one you want may not be,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you don't always want to get two desserts.
Right.
Some you can. I mean, there's no law. you know.
No. No.
All right, favorites. So colors, authors, music, movies, celebrities, foods, restaurants, snacks. Well, obviously Tom Selleck, right? I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Tom.
Oh yeah.
Magnum PI.
Magnum PI.
It's
Yep.
a good show, though. I mean,
He was the man at the
that
time.
show holds up. It's really
Yeah.
good. A
Yep.
lot of the shows hold up. What are your strengths, right? So we had the what are your
Yeah.
weaknesses.
Yep.
What's your passion? What makes you tick? Do you like to volunteer? Do you like to participate in civic organizations? Do you help others, and how does it make you feel? So, yeah, some people like to volunteer, some don't, and I think it's a good idea for anybody to do it. But some couples make a habit of doing it all the time, and
Hmm.
a lot of people donate to a lot of things, and people have
Right.
different opinions on what to donate to and what to volunteer for anyway,
Right.
even if you are on the base level same page.
Right. Yeah, and it's a way of giving back.
Yeah.
It's like helping, others, and usually
Yeah.
that, helps to fill your happiness tank or your
Yeah.
love tank if
Yeah.
you're doing something
Yeah.
together.
And I think it's important to say, like, volunteering, like, you're helping the elderly neighbor mow the lawn. Like, I think
Hmm.
that counts.
Hmm. For
I,
sure
I
it
think that
does.
counts in what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to be a big
Right. Exactly.
thing. It can
Yeah.
be, very
Yeah.
localized.
Yeah, because like I help, some elderlies get their groceries and take them to the doctor and things like that, and
Hmm.
it is important, and that's
Yeah.
that's showing Christ's love is
Yeah.
taking care of people.
That's the key of it,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah.
If you like a certain organization, that's great. If you don't,
Right,
find some people around you and
right,
help them
sure,
out.
yeah.
Okay, date night, making and taking time, couples getaways and marriage retreats, laughing, or changing it up. So, yeah, date nights, that's a big one.
It is. It's important, and you need to take
Yes,
that time to do the date nights,
because,
and
yeah, and
yeah,
people like to do different things, and you don't always get
Right.
every single opportunity to do that. So you got to make use of what you got. So
you do, and you have to schedule it in because someday if you have kids, you're going to be an empty nest, and
yeah,
if you grew apart from your significant other, it's hard to reconnect
yeah. And
after you've been split and doing
scheduling
your own
stuff is
thing.
important. I know it
Yeah.
seems silly to schedule stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not on our calendars, a lot of times we're just not
Right.
doing it.
Right. And if you don't have it scheduled, that crystal ball is not going to tell you what's coming up
Well,
and what
this
you're
one,
doing,
I can't
So,
wait till we get the one that actually works and I see something in there.
yeah.
Well, I think you might have some questions about me if I start looking at a crystal ball and seeing things, but
Yeah.
probably not going to happen. All right. So
Our next
we got the yellow stack.
Yellow stack. What type of a relationship do you want with your anticipated partner's children? Be honest. It's like if this is a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously do not want to replace a parent to be their,
No.
new mom or
Doesn't,
dad.
it doesn't quite.
Right. But do you want to be their best friend? Do you, how do you want, that relationship to be?
Yeah.
And, it's one of those, it's a tough one because you want to do what's right. It's hard for everybody in a blended family,
mm-hmm.
and especially the kids because they didn't ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to be respectful. No matter how rebellious they are, how much they don't like it, it's going to be a big issue. Next question is, do you want children after you are married? If it's a first marriage and you've never had any, or do you want the yours, mine, and ours issue if it's a blended family and you're starting again?
That's a huge.
It is huge because children and blended children into a relationship. A relationship's hard enough without adding the extra into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be, respectful, and you have to really communicate that because, a lot of times kids become the in between and the dividing factor of, whether your relationship is successful or not.
Mm-hmm.
If age and or medical prohibits you from having children, would you consider adoption?
Yeah. Huge.
It is huge.
Yeah.
Because some people long to have children and want to have their own, and they're not necessarily open to taking care of somebody else's kids. And it's a big, especially when you're in foster or adoption, those kids come with trauma and troubles.
Well,
and
yeah,
it's not easy by any means.
Adoption is expensive no matter how you do it
Mm-hmm.
in different ways, right? So obviously, like just straight up adoption, even domestic ones, international ones, super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Fostering and then adopting, there's usually like a refundable court fee, but you pay for that in other ways.
Yeah. How often do you want to spend time with the grandkids, and what kind of role do you want to play in their lives?
It seems like an odd thing to think about at the start of a marriage. Some folks are there when they get married, obviously, but
they are.
A lot of us will one day be there if we're not there right now.
Right, and not only that, if you're a grandparent, as a grandparent, kids only want to come over so often until they get to a certain age, and then grandma or grandpa's not cool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they, grow up and have their own friends and their own lives and their own interests. And so you have to look at that. But a lot of times grandparents, especially the grandparents younger these days, they don't want to spend as much time with the grandkids because they want to go travel and do their own thing because, now they've raised their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important that you talk about what kind of role do you want the grandparents to play in your kids' lives, but
Mm-hmm.
what kind of role do you want as a grandparent to be involved
Absolutely.
in your grandkids? The next one is goals. What goals do you have personally, as a couple, and as a family?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's important to have goals and something to strive for or work toward. And when you have a goal, especially as a family, it gives everybody the opportunity to be a part of that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a part of that, achieving that goal. The next one's education. Continuing your education, professional certifications. Would you like to complete that? College for kids. What's your plan? Are you somebody in the trade business and,
Mm-hmm.
College isn't your thing?
Right.
Where does everything stand? It's like, even today, every once in a while, I think about going back and getting my master's, and, so you have to look at that as,
It's a lot of time and effort to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And money.
And money, yes.
However, after at the age of 60, you can be an auditor of a class. It doesn't cost you anything. You can audit classes. Now, whatever you take, it doesn't go toward a degree because they don't count it because you're not paying for it. But you can audit classes at your colleges. So it's something, if you are older, like I am, and you have an interest in learning something, that is something that you can do. You might have to pay for books, but on that note, it's one of those things that it gives you an opportunity to go to college and check it out and audit a class and see if you do really want to, continue your education. Because you're never too old. That's something that no one can take away from you.
Correct.
Automotive, repairs and maintenance. Who's going to do those things? Who's going to take care of the e-checks if needed, and plate renewals, insurance and new cards, and placed in the vehicle? Whose responsibility is that going to be? How's it working now and how's it going to work later? Are your roles split within your household? So and that's a big thing. Television. This goes to your remote and your volume. How much TV do you watch? Do you have multiple TVs? Do you sleep with the TV on? What are your favorite shows? How do you handle discrepancies, shows on at the same time, or dislike shows? Or do you have any in common? And with so much live streaming and people watching things on their phones, what is the issue? Sometimes it's hard to sit and watch a television show together because you don't have the same interests or the same sense of humor.
Right.
So what's the solution to that? Parents and grandparents, aging parents, future care, assisted living facilities, nursing homes, etc. What are the parents' wishes? Are there other siblings? Because someday we're all going to take care of a parent or be responsible for parents or watching over them. The Bible says we're supposed to do that. But, as parents are in this new committed relationship, how are you going to be affected by that?
Right.
And so you need to look at that. Don't worry, Greg. I'm not moving in.
No, we actually looked into a thing whereby we were going to add an addition to our house, right? And the purpose for it was originally we had to separate the boys and wanted to have another bedroom. But it could be used for something like that. But this was right during smack in the middle of the pandemic, and the addition to this house would have cost $30,000 more than the house did. So that didn't end up happening.
Extended family, in-laws, parents and grandparents, extended stays and sleepovers. That's one of the things too, is, if you have visiting relatives, but you also have to discuss the question of, are you going to allow your kids to do sleepovers? And if you do, how are you going to handle checking out to make sure the people that they're staying with are safe? You have to really look at everything. There's children, visitation rights, working with ex-spouses and their family and friends and their schedules. If you're doing a blended family, there's always, typically exes that are going to have visitation. And just because you have children and you're divorced doesn't mean that, that ex-spouse isn't going to be a part of your life the rest of your life.
No, that's
yes, it is.
Yeah, in most cases, that person is still there.
That's right. Residence, where are you going to live? What can you afford? Does someone need to rent or sell? Who is going to move? When you're making those decisions, if you have, a marriage again, and you're looking at, who's going to give up their residence, how's it going to work?
And if you're picking a residence for the first time, the neighborhood, the school district, what it's close to, can you walk to stuff, all that, suburb or downtown or.
And where do you want to live? Close to this family or that family, or, close to whose work. Discipline. What are your discipline styles? Do blended families, who disciplines? And resolving being pitted against each other, because that's what kids will do.
Yeah.
Kids will do that whether it's a blended family or not, because they'll go to mom, and mom will say no, and then they'll go to dad.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
that
the kids
happens.
Don't think I can hear what's going on upstairs in the basement, and I'll hear
Yeah.
I'll hear mom say no to something,
Yeah.
and then somebody will come down and ask me the thing.
Right.
Come on.
Right. Well, and then it's like
you don't even get that mad about it at that point. You're just like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you have a blended family, are you going to discipline your kids and I'm going to discipline mine? And how is that going to work?
Yeah, that's yeah.
You really need to be on the same page.
There's no right or wrong answer, but you do have to.
And that's why it's important to talk about everything, because if you jump in and it's too late, these are things that you should always discuss and come to some type of a compromise or a solution or a resolution. Holidays, where do you spend them? What are your family traditions? How do you compromise on this? And what are the family dynamics? Is it, you go to one for Christmas and one for Thanksgiving and you rotate? Are the parents or families close or not?
Yeah.
Those are all things you have to look at, because everybody has traditions.
Yes, they do.
And they're, sometimes stuck in those traditions, and it's hard to get out of that tradition. And then sometimes you make new traditions because you have a new family. So, vacations, do you take one? Do you like to go together, or do you like them to be separate? You go with, or you go without the kids?
Yeah, and you can do any combination of those things in a calendar year. So
yeah, you can, and it'll go back to staycations or different things that fit your budget. But you do need that time, like we talked with date night, you need that time away from the kids.
Yes, you do.
And you need that, the kids need that time as well. Important dates. Guys do get a lot of bad rap on important dates as far as birthdays, anniversaries. What dates are important to you? How many are you going to remember in the calendar year? And Valentine's Day, sweetest day, Easter, Christmas, all of those. But what dates are important to you? And maybe as a couple, you decide you're not going to celebrate this holiday.
Yeah, or the birthdays,
Right.
Yeah.
So you can make that decision. But, it's better to talk about it than get mad because somebody forgot or didn't remember. Or you maybe, there's some short-term memory issues and you have to come up with a resolution of reminders, So you need to look at that.
By the way, guys, we all have these technology rectangles. Put it in the calendar. You can have it remind you a week before, a month before.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, an hour before. You just do it. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, what is that saying?
Or if you have if you like the paper calendar, obviously you can do that too.
Yeah. But I was thinking of the happy wife, happy life.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes that's true. Family history. How were you raised? What is your favorite childhood memory? And what was your most disappointing holiday?
There's a lot in there.
There is a lot in there because, part of the reason that, holidays are so stressful is they're not happy for everybody.
Right.
And, in order to make it happier, to know what's going on, you have to talk about it and say, why is it you don't like Christmas? Household chores, grocery shopping, laundry, cooking, sweeping, trash, lawn maintenance, etc. Who is going to do the chores? And how are you going to split them up? And, if you have kids, what responsibilities are the kids going to have and participate? It's like it's a process of learning. It's like, my granddaughter was with me today and she made some banana muffins. And I said, part of making the banana muffins is you have to clean up your mess, so she had to do dishes and clean up the mess. And that's how they learn. And that's how, as a family, you learn to work together. Responsibilities, joint. Paying the bills, who's going to pay the bills, decision making on amounts over $250 or a sum certain, maintaining the household, who's going to take care of that if something breaks in the house, who's going to schedule the repairs, who's going to, are you going to sit and do it together?
Yeah.
It's one of those things too that I think a lot of things do need to be done together when it comes to paying bills, because if something happens to one, the other isn't going to know. Where to go from here. So it is, but you need to talk about those responsibilities. And, I know we talked before about um, you didn't have as many two-income households like you do now, and so you don't have all the stay-at-home moms, and it becomes, who's going to split that, because it's not right that everybody works and only one person does something.
And that $250 number, everybody has a different amount where couples agree on. If you're going to spend over that, you talk about it. But that's a tough one. I mean, that can be different for everybody. It can be different based on a ton of different things.
Right. Well, should we wrap this up and go into part 3?
Let's do it.
All right.
White cards.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. What kind of legacy do you want to leave for your significant other, children, family, and friends, right? Because we're not promised tomorrow.
That's
so
right. We're not.
You do have to think about that stuff, and it's important to talk about.
We did that show on epitaphs and, what we want to leave behind and how we want people to remember us. So, and that's important too, because maybe somebody wants something, different than the other.
How important is communication in a marriage, in any relationship? Well, that's a trick question, right?
Oh, we don't need to communicate. We'll just talk about it later.
Yeah.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, obviously communication is important, but there are aspects to that. And if you have a disagreement, and you walk away from it for a bit, when do you, come back to that kind of stuff? And
and you have to have a plan. I listened to a radio show when I was on the road the other day, and these ladies, it's called Trigger, and it's got another subtitle to it. But it talked about planning your responses. Like if you have a trigger and your kids are going to, hit this trigger, you have a planned response. So even like in the communication end, you can set something like we talked about before, have one word. If somebody listens to that, says that one word, it could be purple. That is a significant or a sign for you that you're going to come back in 20 minutes. You're both going to walk away.
Right.
So to set that type of parameter is a good thing.
All right. Are you willing to give your life for your anticipated significant other? Wow.
Well, you have to think about it. Are you willing to take a bullet for him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
Are they that important to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you too set in your ways to make changes now? Are you willing to make the sacrifice to change? And, that's a tough one, and there's no right or wrong answer, but you do have to be on the same page with that.
Yeah, you do, because if you're not willing to make the sacrifices and do what it takes, your relationship's not going to last.
No.
Because if you can't compromise and you can't come to a resolution, then you're going to be at a standstill.
What is one of life's biggest challenges that you have had to face? How did you handle it? Yeah, that is a significant. You can learn a lot about how somebody solves a problem when you answer that question.
Yeah.
What went wrong with prior relationships? What have you learned, and how have you grown as an individual? Discuss both personally and spiritually. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about the exes.
Yeah, and nobody wants to talk about their failures.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to repeat history.
Certainly
if you can help it. And so that's why I think all cards need to be on the table.
Yeah. Have you suffered the loss of a loved one, family, friend? How did this affect you? And if it hasn't happened yet, it is going to happen. So it's an important thing to talk about anyway.
Yeah, it is. Because we did talk, I think, when we had our grief session that, everybody grieves differently.
Yes.
And, is it something that, the way this person is going to grieve? And you may not know how you're going to grieve if you've never experienced a loss. But, there has to be that period and that understanding.
Do you live looking and planning for the future continuously, or continuously looking in the rearview mirror? So do you live looking forward, or are you always looking back at what happened before?
Yeah.
It's a good Meatloaf song, Objects in the Rearview Mirror. They appear closer than they are.
Yeah.
He had a mouth on him sometimes, but that was a deep song.
Well, even your rearview mirror nowadays tell you those objects are closer than they appear. Yep.
So it's, you got to live in the moment at some point, but everybody's going to lean more towards, looking forward or looking back a bit.
Right.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? Yeah, but the answer is never nothing.
Or let's put it this way, it should never be nothing.
Shouldn't be, yeah.
There's always something to be changed.
Because if you have someone who's honestly perfect, you're married to Jesus, and that's
Yeah,
just not
that's
possible.
exactly right. Yep.
That's the only way that works.
I know.
There are no double standards in a relationship. What one can do, so can the other. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
And that applies itself to a lot of the other cards.
Yes, it does. And you have to remember that, if one person in the relationship can do it, then when you're doing it, you have to understand it's okay for the other one too. So if you're going to have lunch with a friend that is a female and they're just a friend, then the other one can have lunch with a male that is just a friend, and that has to be okay too. Mm-hmm. So you have to really think about those things and talk about them, because if that's one of your pet peeves or things that makes you jealous, then you need to talk about that. And the Bible says not to put yourself into the appearances of evil, which, and we think that having lunch with, somebody that is not your partner, or your husband or wife is no big deal, except for, how do rumors start? All right. How does gossip start?
And that the question of whether that's an appearance of evil is probably different for everybody. It's different for every, you have to be honest with your partner and yourself.
Yeah.
When making a decision, consider who will be affected by your decision, both individually and as a couple, or as a couple. Kids, family. At what cost is your decision worth making?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to die on that hill?
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes I fight on hills for far too long. How was your childhood? What were your likes and dislikes about it? And we've kind of touched on that in some other cards. And there are aspects of that. Are there currently family, friends, kids, etc., who have expressed discontent with your relationship? If so, why? Yeah, you don't want somebody actually standing up at the wedding
saying, I disagree. Yeah. But sometimes we don't take light into somebody else's opinion either, because we think they don't really know the person. Mm-hmm. But if somebody is voicing an opinion or a concern, you really need to take a look at it. And, because sometimes you're so close to the relationship, you don't see it. Yeah. Or you're willing right now to overlook it because you think, oh, it'll change after we're married, or it's not going to be that way. Mm-hmm. And so you really need to take a look at that and pay attention.
This card made me think there's a fun video. This couple is getting married, on a farm, and there was a cow in the background, and the pastor, reverend, preacher, I don't know, he wasn't paying that close attention. So if anyone, objects, he said that, and then the cow just mooed real loud. The cow had a problem with the whole proceedings. Can't control what those animals are going to do and when they're going to do it. Name a person who you have looked up to as an example that you wanted to follow. If that's you, that's easy.
That's funny.
But no, that's a big one, because that shapes a lot of what we're striving for, and can expose, or just not expose, but shed light on characteristics that we may.
Yeah.
Oh.
You can tell how old the cards are because the glue's coming off.
That was really, Are the words, I'm sorry, or please forgive me, in your vocabulary? They should be.
They should be. That's right.
We know they're in Bryan Adams' vocabulary. Another good song. What do you do now when you are not together? How will this change when you are together?
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
It is a big one.
Because we get so used to how we spend our time, and
and coming and going when you want to without worrying about anybody else. Mm-hmm. And now that there is somebody else, it's a whole different story.
And can you understand a person's past and move forward? And there's a lot of skeletons that can be in that old closet.
That's right. That's right.
And there's not forgiveness is important, but also you got to consider coming into a serious commitment, and there's no right or wrong answer to that. That's why you talk about it.
That's exactly right.
Are you a jealous person? Yes or no? Explain.
Yeah.
Don't see where that could ever apply to be. That's another big one.
Yeah.
All these are big ones.
Yeah. What was the biggest complaint about your prior relationship?
That's I mean, because
it didn't work out for a reason.
Well, and you might raise a red flag in the other person's mind, like, oh, I do that thing, or
Does it bother you if either party looks at the opposite sex while you are with your special someone?
That's tough.
I think that's rude.
Yeah,
In my opinion.
It is.
It's not right for you to, oogle and look at somebody else when you are on a date or with somebody. Mm-hmm. It's very rude, in my opinion. How do you feel you are different from your parents?
Most of the times we really aren't.
Yeah, because a lot of times, people say if you want to see what your spouse is going to look like, look at their parents because that's how they're going to, come out. But, sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not, but you have to look at it, mm-hmm. And what did you do different in your life to change that you didn't like what your parents did?
Right, exactly.
So, what do you want out of life?
To do this show and just
keep helping people. Sharing our insights and our mm-hmm. life stories and history.
That's an important question.
Yeah. What do you want out of life? That's one of the things my main goal is to help people. If we can help somebody and save them, don't be like me. I've learned a lot of things over the years, and it's like anything I can do to help save somebody from going through what I went through, then that's what, to me is important. Yeah. But are you a pet person, and how do pets fit into your lifestyle and household?
Because there's lots of allergies. Some people have pets.
That's right.
Some people don't.
I have a pet joke.
Pet joke, all right.
But I don't know if I should say it. Some pet lovers might not think it's so funny, but
well, I mean,
it's a joke.
Are we going to get PETA after us for this, or
no?
You don't want them on your case.
I'll say it, and if you don't like it, you can edit it.
All right.
What do you call a dog with no legs? It don't matter. He ain't gonna come anyway.
I think overall we have to leave that in, but I can see where. Yeah. That's really not that bad.
Yeah. So, what does it all mean?
Yeah. And what is that it to you and life? And
do you like crowds?
That's huge because people who are perfectly confident doing their daily life can crumble in anxiety in the middle of a crowd.
That's right. They can. And some people are claustrophobic and they don't want to be around that many people.
A lot of people don't do real well with background noise and hearing, and it's just hard for some people to deal with.
Yeah. What is a committed relationship? What is a committed relationship to you? Because commitment can have a different meaning to somebody else, Because somebody could just say, oh, I'm always going to be there. It doesn't matter if I'm home or not, but I'm always going to be there and you can count on me. Well, if you're not there, that, to somebody else is not a committed relationship. Yep. Do you have what it takes for no matter what? Having that person that's going to love you no matter what.
Yeah, and that's... And you take those wedding vows and you answer questions about no matter what.
That's right.
That is serious. It means no matter what.
Yeah. And this one's so important. I've got it in here twice. It's what is commitment and what does it mean to you?
Right. And the other one was about a committed relationship, but exploring, aspects of the word commitment, because you do have to commit to other things too.
Yeah, you do. How do you handle disagreements? You never let the sun go down on an argument. Take 20 minutes to cool down before talking about it, etc. How do you handle disagreements? Do you just sit and yell? Have you seen somebody get physical?
Well, you don't do that.
Yeah, you should never get physical. But if somebody's got that inherent trait that they've learned, and you have to know that before
that's something to watch out for. And it's not a right or a wrong answer. People have their past and you can deal with it, but maybe you have to put some things in place for when there are disagreements to really make sure you're not, going towards those triggers.
Right, which is why we talked about maybe this a secret word that, says you need that 20-minute cool down period.
And just
or something.
For everybody out there, I think the Greg and Leisa show is a perfect secret word.
Yeah. Do you sit in silence a lot with minimal conversation when it is just the two of you?
Some people like that, some people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have to talk at some point, but
right.
A lot of people can relax and just sit there and watch and not, watch a movie or whatever, what have you, not really say a whole lot.
Right. And there has to be a balance. I mean, it's one of those things that if you're not ever talking, then what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So. And our last card, what is your confidence level with your relationship? Are you partially committed, not 100% sure about your partner or yourself, and do you have doubts? You have to look at everything as a whole.
Right. And first of all, some doubts are, doubting is to some degree a normal part of life, but you have to talk about this and have to explore what exactly it is you're doubting.
Right. And it goes back to what we said too last week. If you don't have all the information, you can't make an informed decision.
And there's also a difference between a doubt and just being nervous, and you have to realize that too.
Right. And you have to pray about it.
Yes.
You have to pray about, is this the person for me? Is this who God would want me to have?
Because that answer is beyond your feelings, so you can still be nervous about something, and God will tell you.
Yeah. Well, and when you're making that commitment, your life is totally going to change. And are you ready?
And I would think it's normal. It's normal to be nervous about it, but you that's why you have to discuss these things and kind of go beyond your feelings to realize, am I just nervous, or Right.
And that's part of what counseling is about, but that's also part of what all these cards are about. Is all cards are on the table, and we do have another Bible verse for being honest.
Sure.
It says Proverbs 28:13. Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. So, being honest is really the key. You don't want to answer these questions and say what the other person wants to hear. You want to say what you really feel, because it's important for the relationship and for the commitment. So, but you have to look at, I would want all cards on the table before I ever made another commitment.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things that it has an impact on the rest of your life, because it's supposed to be a lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking?
I think I should have got some more cards out before I agreed to do this show. No, it's an important topic. And I think you have to give yourself some grace on some of this, because, there's always going to be some surprise. That, as exhaustive as these cards are, there's always going to be something that you manage to not cover. You know.
But the more you're prepared and the more you've talked about, the more you will make it through whatever comes across. And
I think as early as is appropriate to start talking about this stuff, because you can go through them once and, nothing may come up. You may not think of anything. And then during the week, all of a sudden, like, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, and if you don't talk, you have to remember the other person doesn't have a crystal ball. The other person doesn't know your past.
They don't have this.
Yeah.
Or if they do, it's about as good as this one.
Yeah. But open communications is the key. It's the key to everything. It's the key at work. It's the key in your relationship. It's the key with your kids.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times we get into a relationship and we pray for the other person to change. And it's like I made the comment the other day, this isn't going to change until you change. And a lot of times when you're praying, God changes you.
Yeah,
he doesn't change the other person. He changes
That's usually
you.
how that works.
Yes,
and that's not to say the other person never needs to change, right?
No.
There are certainly things that happen in life that require that, but oftentimes you change first.
Yeah, you do.
Depends on what it is. I can't explore all that as we close out here.
Right.
But
yeah. So. Well, anyways, that's our all cards on the table part 2 finale. So
is there something wrong with us having broken this into 2 shows? In a sense, we didn't put all the cards on the table in a show?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, good.
I think we're okay.
I've been thinking about that one for a week.
Yeah.
I was waiting to say it. Here we are. All right, but that's it was a good topic, and we will see everybody next week.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend.